Hi, my name is Katie May, and welcome to the Baby May podcast. This is a show that I made to talk about my perspective as a half white, but I grew up in Nunavut, I grew up in Iqaluit, and there's a lot of things that I have been thinking about as I've moved out of Nunavut and as I've been working in policy. I work in gender justice. I feel like this is kind of a show that where I can get into some of my thoughts around these things in a bit more of an unfiltered way. Not exactly unfiltered, but I could be a bit more open and explore some of the things that I have experienced or that I try to work on. And I think my goal of this show is to just kind of talk about the awkward things that I don't necessarily always feel comfortable talking about in person. Like I get kind of shy. And I guess it's kind of funny for me to then make a podcast because I'm shy. Maybe it's because I grew up working in film media with like a bunch of film and audio equipment around. I am a lot more comfortable expressing myself with a microphone in front of me. And I was about to say and a laptop, but actually I have my phone with me today, which is something new. I know that this is the first episode for all of you guys, but this is actually an episode that I have re-recorded. You guys will listen to the episode that I initially had as my first episode, but once I listened to the 4 original episodes that I recorded, I realized that I didn't really get into myself or what the show is, like what my goals are. And I think it's because I was kind of jumping into the deep end of a lot of uncomfortable topics that I frequently think about or experience. I had an episode talking about internalized racism, and I talked about some serious things. And I'm really happy to talk about those things, and I want to be able to share my thoughts and opinions on it. I wanted to try and make this first season a bit more at ease, not necessarily making myself palatable. In one of the episodes, I talk about like my insecurity of like I had to make myself palatable, and that's something that I don't want to encourage that behavior for myself because making myself palatable really made me feel like I was shaping myself into a character that I just was not, and a character that like I felt like people wanted me to be. So I just said things that I think people wanted to hear. So the first 4 episodes that I recorded, I feel like they're quite raw because I really wanted to let go of that expectation I had put on myself. But now I am reflecting on some of the things that I did with the first 4 episodes. And like I said, I'm really happy to talk about those things. I don't have any regrets, but I think I just wanted to try. By the way, I should say I work with this amazing organization called Videa. They're a nonprofit, and like I said, my focus is on gender justice. There's a gender justice team. I meet up with them. And one of the things that I said was that even though gender-based violence is wrong, it's not wrong to talk about it. And with learning how to talk about things that are quite sensitive and do touch people quite deeply, I wanted to make sure that like I am talking about it in a way that is not making things feel more tense or more awkward, to be able to work through that awkwardness, to work through that tensity and show that like it is okay. There's a way to work through the uncomfortability of talking about these things. And as I was reflecting on the first 4 episodes, jumping into the deep end, even though it is quite necessary at times to be upfront and kind of blunt about some of the things that are going on, I also think for conversation to happen, especially as a community, there needs to be a way for the community to feel like it is safe to talk about things that have been making us uncomfortable. And we kind of continue to feel like it's hard to talk about internalized racism and racism in general. It's hard to talk about violence. And it's hard to talk about all these issues that are going on. It is important. That's what I wanted to get across with these 4 new episodes. I wanted to get into the awkwardness of it all. To start with the show, I should talk about myself. Something I also noticed when I was listening to the first 4 episodes, like I didn't really talk about myself. I think I am actually quite afraid. I am just been realizing like I'm a deeply shy person. I do consider myself to be social at times. Like, I really do like socializing and getting to make friends and hang out with them and doing a bunch of other kind of stuff with the community. But deep down, I'm also just very shy of all of that and like actually letting people get to know me rather than just working on something with people. I definitely love to work with people. That's one of my favorite things to do, depending on what it is. Right now, I'm working alone in terms of recording. I don't actually work alone on the podcast. I work with a wonderful group of people with Notable Films who funds the podcast. And then there's my editor. He's wonderful. And then I also have some mentors who have their own podcast. Their names are Caitlin and Madeline, and they run the podcast show called Spilling Labrador Tea Under Cedar Trees. I work with them on their podcast, and I am featured on one of their episodes, and that was kind of like one of the kickstarting moments of me solidifying the fact that I want to do a podcast of my own, and I'm going to do it. And I'm really happy to be doing it, but there are a lot of challenges. I find it to be extremely awkward, but I guess that's kind of the point of the show. I am really happy to be working with the people that I work with on this show and on Caitlin and Madeline's show. They're both great groups. I do work with a lot of people when I really think about it. Sometimes I don't talk to a whole lot of people in my day-to-day life, but when I'm working, I'm definitely interacting with a lot of people. And I guess there's a lot of things that I'm happy to be working on. But when it comes to like my own thoughts and opinions on the things that we're doing, I get quite shy. And this is where I feel kind of safe to share them for now. Hopefully, I feel a lot more comfortable just sharing these things in person with the people that I like work with and people I care about and like my friends and stuff. I'm not like a total closed up person. I feel like I'm actually quite open at times. And with my job in policy, I feel like I am open and I can communicate quite clearly on the goals that I have and things that I want to see within my work and the people that I work with, which I am really happy with that. And I guess I'm just going through the growing pains of becoming an adult and having like a job as an adult. Especially a job like where I am doing community work, where I am engaging with a lot of people and hoping that the policies that I work on are like effectively helping people and advocate for people who've been misrepresented or underrepresented. And I don't necessarily fully recognize the work that I'm doing, especially at my age. Right now, I'm 21. And I've been working with Videa for about a year, and I'm really, really, really happy. I don't really know what else I would want to be doing. Like, I am doing the podcast shows, and I definitely enjoy that. And I guess I've worked in film media. I was an actor growing up. I guess I am still an actor, but I kind of suck at auditions, like online auditions. One thing I find odd when it comes to filming myself with my camera, I am also very awkward, but I don't find myself to be as awkward if I'm like being recorded professionally. Maybe I'm also not as awkward if other people are recording me on their phones. I don't know. But it felt very personal when I was doing some online auditions, and it didn't feel very interactive. It felt very awkward. And that's kind of why I don't really do much acting right now. But when I have auditions in person, I find them to be a lot better. Like it gets across what the project that I'm auditioning for, like what it is, who I'm going to be working with, what they're looking for. How can I cross off the like things that they're looking for? It gives me a better chance to see that and try my best with that. Online auditions definitely give a physical description of what they're looking for. They give you a little demo of the script, but there's no context from my experience so far. I really have a hard time reading as to what I'm supposed to be doing or like with the character that I am auditioning for, like what they're supposed to be doing. It's just very hard. I think when it comes to acting, I prefer to do projects where I feel connected in a way that's not so terribly awkward. Again, I guess the thing about this show is working through awkwardness. I think auditioning online is just too awkward for me, and that's okay. That's okay for things to be too awkward. The more I've been learning about audio media, not just film media, I've been really interested and I want to learn more about it. And I guess my first step with it is just like recording and doing this podcast. Like I said, I don't do the editing, but I have a friend who does sound editing and I'm learning bit by bit about that. And it's not like I'm in a course or anything. I'm just kind of watching over his shoulder. And I think I would be somewhat interested in having a more hands-on learning experience, but I don't really like school. One thing about me, most people in my life kind of know this. I don't like school. I didn't finish school. I definitely love learning. I am most definitely for education and for learning and having access to those things. But I had a very hard time in school. I was a good student for quite some time, but then I just lost my ability to like pay attention. I didn't care that much because I felt like there was a bunch of other things that were going on and school didn't matter to me because other things like my family, taking care of myself and staying safe, like those kinds of things were important to me. I think school just kind of felt like it was in the way and it left a very bitter taste in my mouth. And I'm still just bitter about school in general, which is like something that a lot of people in my life, especially my family, is like, no, Katie May, go to school. It's great. And it is. School is great. It can be. I fully agree. If you're going to school or you want to go to school, you should do that. I fully support it. And I think it's something that like really brings a lot of people a great learning experience. Hopefully it brings working opportunities. But I guess for right now, like I just have like such a disconnect from any type of school. And I feel like if I were to be learning about working in media, I want to be working with people who already do media. I've heard that there are film clubs in Winnipeg. Like, I'm sure a film club would probably also teach you about some audio editing or just editing in general. And I think that's really interesting. I do want to get into editing. I just am terrible with technology. I kind of had to familiarize myself with that a bit more. I said this at the beginning, but I'm recording on my cell phone for the very first time. It's very strange to me. I've had like quite a bit of cell phones since I was like a teenager, but I am not a tech person. I wish I was, and I think slowly, very, very slowly, I am learning more and more about becoming a tech person. But the room that I'm in right now, it is a professional recording space in my friend's basement. And there's so much techie stuff for recording and all a bunch of other kinds of things. Yeah, it's always like reminding me that like I'm not at all close to that yet. And I don't know if I will be. Like, I don't think I'll get into music. Like, I love musicals, but I'm not musically talented at all. I did choir in elementary school, but I think I also had some self-awareness that like I wasn't good. I just wanted to be there because it was fun. And I definitely feel like if you find music fun, you should still be doing that. But like for myself, it was fun. But then once it kind of started getting into like learning how to be good at it, I did not find that fun anymore. So I didn't do it. When it comes to learning about media and filming, things like in acting even, I am quite interested in learning how to develop those skills. I definitely have been learning a lot with the podcast. And yeah, I hope more and more I kind of have this kind of hands-on experience of working with great, kind people and kind of just learning through doing. This podcast is also it's a big self-reflection piece of media. I don't think I'll be listening to the episodes once they are officially published, but I assure you, I have listened to every episode when they're raw recordings, which means they're unedited. I listen back to make sure I don't sound terrible or that there's some horrible background noise that just ruins everything, because I don't want to send in some horrible piece of work to my editor and make his day miserable. Once he edits the episodes, I also listen to what he's done. And I actually like to listen to them. I don't cringe at the sound of my voice. It makes me sound bearable. I think it's a really interesting process. I haven't seen the editing work be done on this show. I don't know if I want to see that, because from what I've seen with editing sound, you're constantly going back every few seconds when you're doing a listen through and editing. When I say S's, sometimes I whistle through my teeth because my teeth are kind of crooked. Well, they are crooked, which is totally fine. I really like my teeth. But when it comes to recording, that kind of sound that I make, that's not necessarily something that people want to be kept in. So with this podcast, those kinds of things are cut out, and all of my pauses in between, all of my like little hiccups and things like that, like things that are just kind of a little awkward for a professional recording, all of those things are taken out. And I actually quite like it because I think it makes me feel like I'm actually a lot more composed and I'm able to get across what I'm trying to say in a way that is understandable and that is a lot more concise, rather than like I'm totally stuttering or rambling in between or mumbling. With recording, I can't mumble. I really have to use my voice, and I really have to make sure that the message that I am putting out is understandable, and that, first of all, I can understand it, and then the people who listen to it before it's published, they can understand it. I want to make sure that this sounds good because I really care about the things that I'm talking about. And I know I may have said it's like unfiltered, but it is edited. Like, to me, it's unfiltered in the sense that like I am still being quite vulnerable. For myself, being vulnerable is hard because at times it's really hard to put the words together or to even find the words to say. So I get like there's a lot of pauses in between. I have a lot of times where I want to restate something because I thought like the way that I said it is just not the way that I actually wanted to say it. So I restart a sentence sometimes and that gets edited out. This is a podcast that really helps me learn how to use my voice and publicly share it in a way that like feels safe to me, but also I hope that it opens conversation and allows people to see that like it's totally okay to work through these things and to talk about them even if it feels uncomfortable. And there are ways to safely work through the uncomfortability. When I was in Katimavik, which is a volunteer program for youth, if you're in the age range, like I think it's 17 to 27, I could be wrong. Maybe it's a bit younger for like, I think the cutoff might be a bit younger, maybe 25 or something. If you're in that age range and you enjoy like community work, I definitely encourage it. I had a pretty all right experience. I have some great friends. There's definitely a lot of frustrations with it, of course. I think a lot of Katimavikers would agree with that, but overall it's a wonderful experience. But yeah, like when I was in Katimavik, there was this graph of your safety zone and your comfort zone. In the middle, it was circles. The graph was circles. In the middle was the circle of your comfort zone. And then there was a circle outside of that, which was your safety zone. And then outside of the safety zone was danger zone. And the thing about danger zone is that that should not be crossed into. You should not be putting yourself or others into danger. But when it comes to your comfort zone and your safety zone through learning experiences and opportunities, hopefully you can expand your comfortability zone and your safety zone because you learn more about how your body works. You learn about the activity that you're doing. You learn about the environment that you're doing it in. And you just familiarize yourself with these things that you just haven't done before so that you do feel comfortable with it. And I found it to be a really interesting concept. My goal in life since then is to just learn how to expand my comfort and safety zones. And yeah, this podcast it helps me with that in terms of finding my voice, working in media, working with community, and talking about the work that I do. This is a podcast that I'm very passionate about, and I hope that for those who are listening, you enjoy the show and that you enjoy some of the things that I'm talking about. Maybe you can relate and connect with the things that I'm talking about. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't know how to talk about it. Maybe you feel incredibly awkward like I do at times, and that's okay. But hopefully this show helps people see that we can work through this together and on our own. And yeah, I think there's a bunch of ways to open that kind of conversation. And I guess I just wanted to open the conversation in this way. Like I said, I don't really know how to do it in person. And this is kind of what makes me feel all right for now. I hope for those who are listening, you've enjoyed this episode. I'm going to be closing it off. And thank you so much for listening. I hope you join in on the next one. My name is Katie May, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.